All right, this is day 2 of recording to the camera for 30 minutes. It's going to be a free flow, and whatever comes up. So we're just going to talk and riff on whatever the hot topic of today is, which is the things that we say to people that we don't actually embody ourselves, teaching things that we are not actually embodying. Now, this is something that comes up in coaching, teaching, educating. This is in family as well. This is pretty much in all areas of life. The monkey see, monkey do. Oh, it's the do as I say, not as I do. This can be very evident when we look at social media, for example. There's this thing around social media where there's a facade, there's an illusion of a certain type of life or a certain type of lifestyle. And within that lifestyle is all of the things that make up that person's life. And they show you a small portion of it. For example, I do the same. I go and put together a reel that goes for 1.5 minutes. Meanwhile, the content behind that has been running for days. It's been running for maybe hours or days or something like that. And so the main thing is that I've been working on trying to integrate all of that. And so when I turn up, I'm actually speaking truth based off what my experience is. And when we have an incongruence there, that's where we are basically inauthentic. We are stating things that we're not embodying. Now, this is also the added benefit to this. If we're honest with this, we can also say that the content that we're creating is for us, because oftentimes it is. It's because I need to hear a certain thing. And if it's something that I want to hear, then I'll post about it. Because then I go through the process of creating that and I see it on the other side and I go, this is great content. Does this resonate with me? Am I embodying those things? So even though some people may not actually be embodying the things that they post about, there is also a self-reflective component. If we are choosing to self-reflect, if this is something that's part of our practice, and go, hey, this is actually designed for what often happens with content, with my content that I'm creating, is I will see something externally that triggers me, brings up my awareness. And what I'll do from there is I go, I'm going to attack this person. I'm going to attack this archetype or this kind of character. And then what actually is being asked of me is to reflect that back to myself and write the post to myself. So if I was addressing this to me, how would I want someone to come across? Would I want someone to be saying that you are shit, you suck at this? Or would you prefer it to be received in a loving way? Like, say, a more openly loving way. And so this helps me frame it for myself, because I go, well, I'm going to say the thing and I'm going to address it. How do I approach addressing that? And then that becomes the content. So that's part of the creative process. How do I like to hear it? And there is this concept with music as well. When we write music, when we release a song, well, there is this thing with, so if we release it, if we write a song, we're writing the song for us. We write the song for us, we serve the purpose of the song, and then release the song. And once the song's released, it's no longer ours anymore. It's the public. It's whoever listens to it. It belongs to them. And this makes it irrelevant what we actually think about the song once we've released it. As long as we've done our job effectively and we've done our best to serve that song, then how the public receives it is completely up to them. If they receive it positively, negatively, they don't receive it at all, that's up to them. The main thing is that I did what I felt was the most right, and I had that open intention for others to receive it. The intention being, I would love to share this with other people, because that's why we do this stuff. We would love to share it with other people. And when it comes from that place, well, whoever receives it will receive it. This is quite a good practice to get the words out and just get a flow on with talking. So now I'm imagining that I'm talking through the camera and I'm talking to a person, talking with someone, and that person is sitting there listening. You are the one that's sitting there listening. Person behind the camera, whoever's watching this on the other side, so this could be me, this could be whoever witnesses it. If I decide to put these videos up as a podcast, then they go up as a podcast. This is essentially practice for the podcast because, well, that's something that's happening. It's going to happen sooner or later. And those wheels are in motion. As for now, it's making talking such an effortless task that it's a part of my life. And video is going to be a part of life. Editing reels is going to be a part of life. Creating content will be a part of life. Writing music will be a part of life. All of these things are part of my life, and I do have time for all of them. The practice that I'm putting in right now is to be able to refine all of these and to get them all to a point where they're not really a task. They're not a tough task. I can put together a reel in half an hour, just sort of, I know all the things that need doing. I can sit there and record one, post it up within the half hour, have it all edited and everything like that. That's just creating the skill set and building the skill set to back up what I do. Because frankly, there's no reason why it should take me 2 hours to put together a reel. That suggests that I've been too uncertain in my delivery and that my delivery was not clean. So that is something to refine, and that's what these videos are about. Doing this every single day. Every single day. It's a warm-up vocal practice to see where my voice is at. How's my voice sounding? How is it resonating? Is it resonating in my body? Does it feel tough to speak? Does it feel like I'm letting it out? Does it feel like I'm using a sense of variety in my voice? Am I using different tonalities? Is my voice croaky? Which it is a little croaky right now. Am I expressing from my heart? Am I expressing from my mind? Am I trying to say all the right things? Am I simply being in my body, making sounds because they feel good to make? And when I feel my voice, it allows me to sit and really receive my voice. Because when I receive my voice, then it allows it to flow. Because a received voice can flow. A non-received voice, a voice that is not received, will not flow. It will be stuck and it will be almost choked up. This comes from you not accepting your own voice. That is why others don't listen to your voice. Because you don't listen to your own. You don't really like your own voice. And that's okay. And if you know this, then there's an opportunity to start to move into that. Because a voice that is loved, a voice that is appreciated, is also given attention. For example, if you felt that your body was weak or you're overweight, what would be a way for you to start developing muscle, to start moving a bit. It may not come from you just wanting to beat it up and saying you suck, because that has a certain level of charge to it, and that may not last. It may last for a while, quite likely will have an expiry date, because that expiry date is, well, what happens? How do you start liking your body? Because you could work out every day for the next 5 years, have a body that most people would be jealous of, and you may still not think you're there. And it feels terrible. Never enough. This whole frame of never enough is still on this enough scale. Good enough, too much, not enough, or just enough. I am enough. What is enough? That enough scale, how is that even serving your life? Is your voice good enough? Is it good enough for what you do? Oh, well, it gets me by. Okay, good enough. Is your voice good enough? Are you measuring your voice? Who are you measuring your voice against? How do you gauge, how to gauge whether your voice is effective? 1, do people listen to you when you speak? 2, do you like your own voice? 3, when you speak, can you feel your voice, or do you dissociate? 4, do you speak about the things that you know to be true based off what you've learnt, or do you speak off your own true experience? 5, people comment on how nice your voice sounds. There is a bunch of different things that we can look at when it comes to the voice. We can riff on so many different topics. One key factor that your voice is effective. 1, you draw attention when you're in a room. People want to hear what you say. 2, maybe people actually comment on your voice. 3, you like your voice. 4, you don't waste your voice speaking to people who aren't listening. 5, you make sure to set up. 5, you make sure that in every conversation you speak when people are listening. Have you ever noticed those people who just seem to be magnetic? When they walk in a room, people listen to them. They want to hear what they have to say. There's one thing that these people do that not everyone else does. This is that they ensure that the other people who are listening, this is because they ensure that the other people in the room are actually listening before they speak. They don't speak out of turn. They don't just speak unintentionally. They speak because they know that they will be listened to. And if they're not, they will be quiet. They'll sit back and listen. They'll take up a lot of space, perhaps, or they may sit and be small in the side of the room, and they may be in the back of the room, and they'll appear like they're not even there, and yet they're actually listening very, very intently. They're gauging people. There's a few different types of people. The types of people in a room. The types of people in a group situation. You have 1, the really loud person that talks over everyone. 2, the quiet person that never says anything, but they're always listening. But they do have an internal dialogue running. Then you have the silent observer, the person who's listening and actually taking on board information. Then there's the person who speaks. So there's the 4 types of people that I'll address is 1, the person who doesn't want to be in the room. Okay? This is the person who isn't listening. They're not really talking. And they're not giving any input or output. They just want to be somewhere else. Number 2, you have the person who's just speaking incessantly. They are all output. They're not concerned with what's actually coming in. They don't want to listen. All they want to do is tell people how great they are, how smart they are, and everything about them that they can brag about. Then you have the 3rd type of person. This is the person that listens all the time but never actually expresses themselves. They never let any output. So they're all input, no output. And what this person will do is sit there and listen. They'll ask questions and they will just never share anything about themselves. They withhold information. And they may do this for the entire night. And people go, I don't even know anything about this person. But meanwhile, they've just been sort of listening. Maybe they're thinking about other things. Maybe they're judging people in the background, not really being productive. Now, this one is arguably better than the prior one and 2, because listening is a huge virtue. Now, the 4th type is our magnetic type. This is the person that is listening intently, then they express themselves and they speak when it's their turn to speak, and then they hold back when they're not. They hold back when they're not speaking, and when they're not speaking, they're listening. So they've got an equal level of input and output. This is magnetic. This is what creates magnetism, because in the other 2 ones, you've actually got, well, if you're doing all output and you're speaking to someone else who's all output, you're going to butt heads. If you're a listening type person, an input person, and you are sitting with another input person, that conversation will not flow, because you'll be sitting there not saying anything. And so in order to create that polarity, the person who's listening actually needs to say something. The saying something could be simply asking a question. And by asking a question, well, then the other person starts to open up, right? So if you notice that any of these dynamics are occurring with you, or if the person who doesn't want to be there, this is something you can actually open up a dialogue with that person and say, hey, what's going on? You open them up by allowing them to feel comfortable by being there, to feel welcomed, to feel like them not wanting to be there is actually okay. And that will bring out a sense of understanding. If you find out that that person doesn't want to be there, allow them to be that. And all of a sudden they're accepted. They feel accepted by you, and maybe they can you can create rapport through that. Because what happens is by you asking a question, you activate their output. And then maybe after a certain point, you may find that they will want to hear your input. They will want to receive some of your input. This takes a little bit more work, and you may or may not want to engage in this. Ultimately, it's a choice. So there's 4 key types of people that I like to identify when it comes to... There's 4 types of people that I like to look at when it comes to communication. The first type is the person who doesn't want to be in the room. That's the person that's not listening. They're not actually even engaging. There's 4 types of people that I like to look at when it comes to communication. The first type is the person who is sitting in the corner of the room. They don't want to be there. They don't want to be there, and they don't want to be there. They're not listening. They don't want to be there. They're not listening, and they're not giving any output either. They're not saying anything. They're simply thinking about where they'd prefer. They're simply thinking about where they'd rather be. The second type of person, and this is no input, no output. The second type of person is all input and no output. This is the person the second type of person is all output and no input. That means that they're actually speaking constantly and they don't stop talking. And eventually, people get sick of them because they're not listening. So they're not adapting to the conversation. They're not flowing. They're not reading the room because they're not taking any input. Now, this brings us into this person can be quite difficult to handle because they don't shut up, okay? There's specific techniques that can be used to handle this type of person. The third type of person is what I like to call as the listener. This is the person who receives everything and sits back and listens. They're interested in everything in the room. They don't actually give anything about themselves. They don't share or express anything. And this is arguably a little bit better than the other one. However, it's still a repressed form of expression. There's a time and place for it. Now, the fourth one is what I like to call as the peak of magnetism within your charisma. This is when you can actively listen to people and you can actively give, so basically you can speak comfortably about yourself, and you also know when you've said too much. You know when to pull back and go, it's time to listen again. Or the other person wants to speak and you allow that because you're reading the room. You have an equal balance of input and output. And that is peak magnetism. Now, if you're any of the other ones, if you normally step into any of the other ones, well, then you've highlighted where you could use some work. So if you are, for one, don't want to be in the room, the way that can be worked on is that one's a whole section. There's a whole section on that one. Now, we're going to focus on 2, 3, and 4 for the moment. 2, the second person, which is all output. What this person is, if you are this person, what you can focus on is listening. That's your practice, is to learn how to listen. Now, if you are the third type, you want to learn how to express yourself, how to express your voice, okay? This is just the beginning phases. And then if you're the fourth type, if you're already embodying this, well, you can deepen into this. And this is also where the refinement comes in, and you can get into storytelling. You can get into, there's so much depth that can be created once you've created this scenario here. Once you've allowed yourself to have enough input and output. This is what I work on in my programs, especially if you are this last type. If you are 2, 3, or 4, that's who I work with. We help to connect. We help to balance that out by joining if you are lacking in receptivity, then we work on the receptivity. If you are stronger as far as your receptivity and you're not as good at your output, then we focus on the output. How to connect yourself to your output more and bring more output. On the last one, this is where we go, how can we be more of you? How can we be more of you in every circumstance? We can just build upon this. We can build into refinement. This is what the official forging process is about. This is taking your existing skill set, your existing input and output, and amplifying it. There are 4 types of people that I like to. There are 4 types of people when it comes to communication. There are 4 key types. There are 4 key types. There are 4 key types of people when it comes to communication, okay? When you enter a room, there are 4 types of people that you'll encounter. Now, the first type is the person who doesn't want to be there. They don't want to listen, they don't want to express themselves, they simply want to be somewhere else. The second type of person, this is the loudmouth. This is the person who doesn't shut up. They don't stop talking about the things that they love, the things that they've learned, how smart they are, how good they are. This can cross into boasting. Really, they're very difficult people to be around. Now, the third type is listening. The third type is the more empathic listening type. This is the person who listens a lot and they don't actually give much back. They don't express themselves very much, so they will tend to be more quiet. Now, this person is typically quite pleasant to be around because, especially for this second type loves the third type. However, resentment builds up in this person because this person doesn't get a chance to express themselves, and they feel almost at home but kind of repressed, and they will get pissed off and they will just walk away because they'll lose interest. The reason being is because the loop doesn't reciprocate. So that person will often feel like, hey, they never give me anything back. I listen to them all the time and they never listen to me. So it creates a block in the energetic loop. Now, the fourth type of person, this is the person who's naturally magnetic. When you walk into a room, this is the person that everyone wants to chat with, everyone wants to listen to. They also want to tell them their ideas. So, because that person's receptive to it. The key point here is this person is equal in their input and output. That means that they can receive information. They can give advice or wisdom. They can float and give you stories. They can share all sorts of things. And at the same time, they will humbly listen to what you have to say. Because you could speak for 5 to 10 minutes and that person may just sit there like asking questions. This is a huge virtue, being this fourth person. Now, if you are this first person, if you notice that, which person are you? Which communication type are you? Number 1, the kind of person who enters a room and doesn't want to be there. You don't listen and you don't even want to speak. You basically want to be somewhere else. The second type is the person who is all output and no input. This person talks incessantly about what they know, about what they've learned, about how smart they are, about the things that they've done. They talk about people. They talk about how they may talk about the conspiracies. They may talk about things that they've learned, and that's all they do. The third type is the person who sits back and listens. This is more of the empathic type. That this person sits back and listens and they absorb all the information, but they never actually give anything out. They never share anything about themselves. And whilst these examples are extremes, this empathic person may speak a little bit. This second person may actually listen a little bit. Mostly it's out of balance. And they may listen very occasionally. Now, the fourth type of person, the fourth type of person is the type who will give a lot of output. They walk in a room, they're naturally magnetic because what happens is their input and output is activated all at once. So if someone's got something to say, they may actually speak to this person. It feels good to speak to them because they will listen. They also have boundaries and they go, now it's my time to speak. They will know when it's their time to speak because they can read the room, because they're listening. They're not just listening to the person in front of them, they're listening to the room, the shifting in the room. That's the benefits of listening. Now, when you have listening active and you've got the output sorted, you create this energetic loop and people are drawn to it. It's a magnet, it's magnetic. this is about the end of this session. We're gonna wrap it up. We're gonna do a script up for that specific 4 types and end for today. Because today it's been a practice session. So we repeat over the same things without any goal of outcome. It's starting to riff on ideas. What an excellent turnout. Bravo.